I think we have our players setting up and ready to go. Look at them. So cool to see the juniors on the big stage.
And they deserve it. They're fantastic players in their own right. And, you know, like you said, they crush it in all the local tournaments as well. We've got Andreas there on our right and Oliver on our left. We've got Oliver rocking our Lugia V-Star deck, and Andreas, he is rocking Dragapult today.
Yep, now looking at their accolades, Oliver has quite a few just this season. Dortmund Regional Champion, Stuttgart Regional Champion, Lille Top 4, and Gdansk Top 8. At Andreas, this is his first accolade, and what a result to have as your first one in your resume.
Absolutely amazing feat, and Andreas could go all the way. They are being coached currently by Drago, apparently, so I'm imagining they're looking upon this feeling very, very proud. And I do have to admit to everyone watching that Oliver is from my local store, and so I'm really excited to see him play after I taught him how to play the game back in 2022. So very excited to see how both of them do. They are both top of their game and look very ready. I would be so nervous if I were them. This is a huge tournament and a very big deal, and they're right at the tippity top. No matter who comes out of this a winner, they're both winners in my eyes.
They both look completely locked in, as if playing on the big stage was just another day in the office, you know? They seem completely unfazed by everything around them, and they're just focused on making sure they're playing their best.
Absolutely, as they should be. This is the Pokémon TCG European Championships 2025, and we're about to get started with the juniors finals. I wonder who will come out on top. If you're watching from home, which deck would you be gunning for?
I'm personally, I don't know. I feel like Dragapult, now that both players are set up and ready almost to go, I think we can talk a little bit more in detail about their list. Oliver does have that Regigigas, right, which immediately deals with those Dragapults, which are hard to power up, but Andreas's list is actually quite peculiar. There's a copy of Lost City, there's, I believe, 2 Crispin, so usually powering up a Dragapult can be a little tough, especially if you only have Sparkling Crystal, which is something we've seen a lot in the Masters division, but Andreas just really wants to make sure he has access to the 2 energies at the right time.
Absolutely, and you know, keeping that consistent flurry of attacks into Lugia can still be really tough. So both players looking raring and ready to go.
I think we had a couple mulligans to resolve before we get this match started. Now, Oliver does have a very peculiar Cinchino line that you were talking to me about earlier. Tell us a little bit about that, Amy.
So at our locals, we have a bit of a joke about the Cinchino line, saying the optimum Minccino-Cinchino line is a 1-2 line, as we like to play the Thornton. And so it kind of feels like you don't need more than one, and then you don't risk starting a basic. But unfortunately, this can be the payback. If it gets stuck in the prize cards, then it will be unavailable. And that Wellspring Ogre-Pon also being in the prize cards can be really damaging to a match against Dragapult.
Yeah, that pressure to the bench can be super key. But for Andreas as well, he prized that Temple of Sinnoh, so he won't be able to deactivate that Legacy energy or that Mist energy to be able to place the damage counters wherever he wants. So both players having, I want to say, impactful enough prizes to where either of those cards, the Minccino or the Temple of Sinnoh, could end up dictating who ends up winning this game.
It really could. Those prize cards could be everything, but hopefully both players have a stellar plan to put into action once we get started. But honestly, I'm so excited. Will it change the entire turn of the battle to have those key pieces prized?
I mean, I think Oliver definitely will notice the lack of Minccino. Of course, you have Regigigas to deal with one Dragapult, but then dealing with another one when you don't have access to that one-hit KO option can be very problematic. Now, we are getting our match started. We do have the Buddy Puffin for Andreas getting those Dreepies established. And over on Oliver's side, we have that very threatening Iron Hands.
Yeah, definitely one of the pinnacle Pokemon that you want in this match. So Iron Hands beginning our match against now a flurry of Dreepy have made it out thanks to Buddy Poffin. Buddy Poffin lets you search your deck and grab 2 Pokemon basics and put them on the bench. So we've got 2 Dreepy, which is fantastic start from Andreas. But I'm not seeing much else in the hand right now. We've got multiple Iono, but can't play a supporter on the first turn. So it's just passing over to Oliver now.
Yeah, pretty decent setup. You can't ask for much more. I like how Andreas just gets 3 Dreepies down just in case. Probably not going to follow this up with a turn 2 Dragapult EX. You can maybe expect active Dreepy to go down. So want to be very careful and make sure you have enough Dreepies as backup. Now, for Oliver, though, that Jack being played immediately could be pretty good. If there's an Ultra Ball to go with it, you get your 2 Arceus into a discard pile right away. Or it could signify that maybe his hand is not too great. Now, I love this. Getting used to note-taking since you're this young, Amy. I started note-taking when I was 30 years old. So
oh, wow. Oliver's got a bit of a head start.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely something important, right? Like, it can help you make sure that you're not making a mistake when you were making a play based around a card that was priced, and all of a sudden you're stuck there being like, well, that's not going to work now. What do I do?
Absolutely. So we're going in with the Shaq first of all. Of course, the key part of Lugia gameplay is that on your first turn, we need a Lugia V in play, at least one, really fantastic. And we would like to get as many Archeops, optimally 2, into the discard pile ready for the next turn. So Lugia V doesn't do much on its own, but we absolutely need it in play for evolution next turn. And we want those Archeops in the discard pile. So hopefully Oliver, like you say, will find a way of hunting down those key pieces early on. But like you said, love this, taking his time on the first deck search to find out what's in the prize cards. Unfortunately, they're not great.
Unfortunately, yeah. That Ogerpon, the Minccino, even one Lugia could be an issue if he's not able to like get off to a strong head start. And now I think Andreas has a very good possibility at any moment in the game to use a Dusknoir and be able to take down both Archeops. So it's going to be very important for Oliver to manage his energy very, very well and try to get as many as possible into play in case that play happens, which I think based on both players being in the finals, I'm sure they've both really prepared and tested this matchup in particular. So I'm sure they're both going to be very aware of that perilous play.
Very, very much so. Okay, our first evolution, Oliver is going for the Lugia V-Star, and our second one, an Archeops. That's the 2 evolutions of the Jacques, and then, oh, there's 1 Archeops in hand and an Ultra Ball, Pablo!
Yeah, this hand is actually super, super strong. Already having the Lugia V-Star, getting the 2 Archeops in the discard pile, and you know next turn, the Lugia is definitely not threatened whatsoever, so looking pretty well here for Oliver. Can't ask for better, I don't think.
No, honestly, this is kind of your ideal Lugia start. Oliver's hand is not looking bad from the get-go either, so continuing on throughout this game, looks like we're going to have a real good start and off to the races for both players. Both of their hands looking really strong, so I'd love to see both of them kind of pull the optimum strategy out of the bag and see 2 titans of the TCG in this finals.
Now, Andreas does know that there's a Lugia V-Star in Oliver's hand right now, so this will make him even more likely to play the Iono that's in his hand right now. So that's going to be pretty good. But that Misagosa, it's going to help both players potentially. Oliver flips heads. That's amazing. Whatever he grabs, though, there's no Minccino or Ogerpon, both of which would be really, really good here.
Okay. Yeah, we're going for another Lugia V. Might not bench it though, might just keep that in our hand for later. Or like you say, possibly knowing that an INO is on the cards, might be thinking, actually, I don't need that right now. If it goes to the bottom of my deck, that's a-okay. But overall, Oliver's hand looking really strong. Just checking the prize cards, look at that, looking at the notes already, and there we go. We've got that fantastic ace spec attached to Iron Hands, the Legacy Energy. It allows the Iron Hands to count as a single prize Pokemon. The opponent gets to take one fewer prize card when they knock it out, and it's a Rainbow Energy, so allows Iron Hands to use its Amp You Very Much attack.
All right, for Andreas, I see that he has a Dracloak, he has a Dragapult, and he has the very crucial Sparkling Crystal in hand already. We're going to start with a Mesagoza. That would have allowed to get Luminion and possibly get Arvin and actually get the turn 2 Dragapult going. However, it was a tail, so Andreas just going to go for that. I don't know, I guess I missaw the Dracloak in hand.
Yeah, there was a Lance, so there was a possibility at kind of using the Lance there to get that really strong Dracloak draw engine going early, but gone for the INO knowing that Oliver had exactly what he wanted in hand, having cherry-picked those cards earlier.
Now there's the first Dracloak. Wonder if Andreas will try to utilize Body's Ichi Pollen at this point in time. I think it would be pretty decent to try to deny Oliver the possibility to search for the Lugia V-Star, right? One Lugia V-Star is now at the bottom. There's the Mesagoza, of course, but that is a coin flip. But if Andreas uses Body here, then the only way to get it is with Mesagoza or having it naturally, because even the Jack is now gone. So that could be a decent way to try to slow down Oliver's amazing start so far.
Absolutely. It's an undeniably really strong start, and I think that is absolutely the core of the issue. So trying to disrupt Oliver in any way possible could really bring this together. But for now, we're going to nest ball for another really important puzzle piece of Andreas' strategy. He needs those Duskulls down. A Pokemon can only evolve once it's been on the field for at least one full turn. The Duskull doesn't do much on his own, but once he evolves, he is quite the cherry picker of different knockouts, so we'll be able to certainly make a bit of a mess of Oliver's board state.
Yeah, being able to combine those damage counters from Curse Blast with the damage counters from Phantom Dive can be quite deadly. Now, I think Andreas, no energy attachment, only one Dracloak, has a pretty decent hand to follow this up. Now it's on Oliver to find that Lugia V-Star, and it's already in hand.
Oh, that was a devastating pass from Andreas. It's really going to slow him down. And Oliver got the heads on the Mesagoza. Again, that Mesagoza is putting in work for Oliver today and just not helping Andreas at all, which is exactly what you want from your stadium. You want it to help you and not your opponent. Stadiums can be used by either player if they have an effect that can do so, just like this one.
All right, we're going to see that Luminion for a very crucial boss's orders that indicates that the Lugia V-Star is already in hand. And I'm thinking, Amy, that Dracloak is going to be hitting the discard pile this turn.
I think you might be absolutely right as we see the rainbow boss's orders, Giovanni coming through. And I believe his bossy nature will mean that Dracloak absolutely will hit the discard pile, which will slow Andreas down massively. We've gone for the Summoning Star on Lugia V-Star that allows Oliver to get two Pokemon from his discard pile. They must be colorless Pokemon and put them straight on the bench. And we're activating those amazing abilities. Primal Turbo, he gets to search his deck for 2 special energy per Archeops and attach them to his Pokemon.
Preemptively benching that Regigigas and powering it up. Really well done by Oliver. Knows that Andreas, in order to respond to this, it's going to be quite difficult to get Rare Candy Dusknoir, Rare Candy Dragapult, and the Sparkling Crystal, and an Energy, and a Counter Catcher. That's a lot of cards. So I'm pretty sure Oliver's feeling pretty confident here, and he went ahead and prioritized protecting the Iron Hands with the Mist Energy. However, we're going to see the knockout on the Duskull. This inadvertently prevents, or protects rather, the Archeops.
I love this. Amp You Very Much. Taking 2 prize cards off a simple Duskull is not only fantastic, but we did manage to get the Wellspring Ogerpon as well. Remembering that if Oliver chooses to discard the Wellspring Ogerpon, that Iron Hands, if it sticks around, can turn into a Wellspring Ogerpon with Thornton.
Right, immediately finding a nice stretcher off of their Recon Directive. We have the Dragapult, we have the Arvin as well, so we can go search for that Earthen Vessel to find us some energies. But I think Andreas would really like to at least KO one of the Archeops here to protect his Dragapult as much as possible from that annoying Regigigas and its Jewel Breaker attack.
Absolutely. The Mesa goes a success this time for Andreas as we get to search for any Pokemon. Looks like we're considering Pheasantipity, one of the strongest newer cards in our roster, where most decks play Pheasantipity nowadays because it's just that good. Its Flip the Script ability allows you to draw 3 cards if on the previous turn one of your Pokemon was knocked out. So it's not often used for the attack. We just want it on the bench for that really awesome ability.
That shows how Andreas completely understands. He's trying to go, I'm guessing, for that knockout on at least one Archeops. Still needs a couple of pieces. Needs to either find an energy or find a counter catcher from this Flip the Script.
2. We need one more card. Ooh.
Oh, that's huge.
Oh, nice. Forest Sealstone. And we have the Luminion already to be able to utilize it. So the Forest Sealstone can only be attached to a V Pokemon. We've already got the Luminion in hand, but do we want to do it now? Because we've already got the Supporter of Choice in hand.
Yeah, now we are missing a couple of pieces, right? We need the energy, we need the counter catcher, and we need the Sparkling Crystal if we're going to try to go after an Archeops or go after the Regigigas. So I think Andreas is piecing this out and might commit hitting this Iron Hands for 200 damage and then getting immediately knocked out by the Regigigas would be pretty devastating.
It really would. But first up, we need that first piece of the puzzle. We need the energy, so Earthen Vessel is going to help us with that. We have to discard a card from our hand. Bye-bye Tatsugiri, which is a really awesome addition in this deck, I might add. Not very common in Dragapult decks, but I appreciate the consideration of its use in this deck to help find supporters. And we're allowed to go into our deck and grab 2 energy of different types. So going ahead, we can get the Psychic and the Fire energy that we need to make Dragapult kind of the strongest it can be.
Yeah, of course. Now, we did shuffle, so maybe we're not going to go all in on this Luminion plus Forest Sealstone to find the counter catcher. Seems like Andreas will be content to just utilize Phantom Dive on the active. There's the Sparkling Crystal, there's the energy, so Phantom Dive is ready to go. All the drip he's about to fly here in London.
Amazing. Sparkling Crystal, when the Terra Pokemon this card's attached to, uses an attack. The attack costs 1 energy fewer, so we can go ahead and use it for just the fire energy. Gonna go ahead and continue to, keep that draw engine coming. We're gonna Ultra Ball 2 cards away for a Dracloak, making sure that Recon Directive stays in play. Where we evolved one, we're gonna make another and keep the consistency of the deck alive.
Now we're gonna try and find that counter catcher perhaps off the Dracloak, or just having it established, as you mentioned, pretty key in case your Dragapult goes down. And when there's that Regigigas in play, it's likely it's gonna happen next turn. So we'll have to see. Could be a very big Recon Directive here, Amy.
Here we go. What's it gonna be? Oh dear, neither of those are what we want. Now there is still the option to play the Luminion and use the Forest Sealstone. We could go further and get the counter catcher this turn, and it looks like it's very much being considered.
Yep, Andreas really deciding on whether it's worth it or not. Because once you bench that Luminion, sure, you protect your Dragapult, but there could be another Boss's Orders, and all of a sudden, Oliver takes 3 prize cards with that amp you very much. So it's almost like a lose-lose situation, but you're gonna try and win this game. The one thing you know is that Oliver had to play a Luminion last turn to find the boss, right? So maybe there is no Boss's Orders in Oliver's hand, but of course, there's still a Mesagoza that could find that second Luminion. But we're just gonna go for the Phantom Dive here.
I like this. I think, like you said, just playing the Luminion feels too risky at the moment. We can set up damage counters and mop up later. It's not imperative to go too vicious this early and risk kind of damaging yourself in the process. Yep. Okay, on to Oliver's turn. We're going to be looking at trying to get another Amp You Very Much on one of those smaller Pokemon, like we were saying earlier. We want to definitely take a 2-prize turn, and ideally not having to deal with Iron Hand's huge retreat cost would be better.
And Oliver did find that Boss's Orders, perhaps from the prize cards, perhaps the top deck, but did have that available. So good call on Andreas to not bench that Luminion. And I think he might have to bench it anyways, because with the Recon Directive, he had to put the Crispin at the bottom of his deck. And if he wants to Phantom Dive, he's definitely going to need to do that.
That is very true. But if Oliver takes another 2 prize cards, taking 3 doesn't make too much of a difference to the prize map. So at that point, Andreas doesn't really mind. We're going to amp you very much another Duskull. And Oliver very much assessing that those are the problem right here and doesn't want one of those to stay in play. Oliver down to 2 prizes. Andreas still on 6. But if any deck can take multiple prize cards in one turn, oh boy, is it Dragapult.
All right. Temple of Sinnoh being prized does prevent Andreas from potentially taking a multiple prize turn here by sending that Iron Hands to the bench. Does flip heads on the Mesagoza. Likely gonna see either another Duskull, perhaps another Dracloak, but I think Andreas needs to take advantage of the fact that there's no gift energy on their hands, although, actually, never mind. He needs to deal with that Regigigas right here, right now. Otherwise, the game's over next turn.
Absolutely. Evolving another Dreepy into Dracloak. So we've got 2 Recon Directive to use this turn and a Flip the Script. Andreas is going to be drawing so many cards. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards more that Andreas will see. So hopefully he'll be able to piece together a huge combo turn right now, attaching energy for turn onto Dracloak to ensure that those energy costs are always going to be adhered to.
Are we going to see that Luminous Sign for Iono? Are we going to see the Forest Seal Stone for the Counter Catcher? That Regigigas needs to be dealt with right now, Amy.
Absolutely it does, because it can one-hit KO a Dragapult. That single prize Regigigas can make all the difference. And so unfortunately, you're right, it needs to be dealt with. And even if some Archeops go down, Oliver has already made the preemptive decision to start loading it up with energy, getting it ready for the future.
Right, it's going to be one better than Iono. It's going to be Roxanne. I guess technically they get the same amount of cards than Iono at this point, so good enough. We're going to see that Roxanne. No shuffling to the bottom, so any cards that Oliver has right now can be redrawn. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not ideal. They might have the game-winning card there, but yeah, we're going to see what we get and then see if we can deal with that Regigigas.
I imagine the Forest Seal Stone might be attached first, then the Roxanne, and then we'll go on from there. Again, plenty of card draw after that as well. So the Roxanne now feels really great because we still have Flip the Script and Recon Directive available. So if Andreas does need more puzzle pieces after that, then we're live, we're all good, we are gaming. But realistically, just that counter catcher needed right now to progress the game further. But if Andreas can just solidify a hand where all of the pieces are together to make a follow-up turn, then we're grooving.
Yep, 2 cards. If the Regigigas goes down, it's gonna be an extra 5 thanks to that gift energy. Oliver down to 1 Boss's Orders, and I'm not seeing any way to counter that Mesagoza. There's no, oh, there is 1 Lost Vacuum. Temple of Sinnoh is still in the prizes, but Lost Vacuum is another piece we might want. Deny that Mesagoza and make Oliver really work for that Boss's Orders to potentially win the match.
Absolutely. Boss's Orders or Thornton might be able to help us out as well. We did take the Cinccino to hand. I don't know if we managed to get the Minccino. No, it's still in the prize cards. Okay. Let's have a looky which Pokemon Andreas is going to activate next. We've got the 2 Dracloaks still to go. We can look at 2 cards, put 1 into hand, 1 to the bottom of the deck. And we can do that per Dracloak. So we've got 1 more to go yet. Going ahead, or we're trying again. We're going another Duskull, surely at some point. I don't know if it'd be very wise to activate 1 at this point, but what's the harm in putting it down? The Dracloak could be taken out by Iron Hands regardless if it sticks around, which it's going to for at least 1 more turn if we target that Regigigas, which is really, really posing a huge threat to the entire outcome of the game at this point.
Yep. Gonna have to see what we commit to. I wish I could see Oliver's 2 cards in hand. Maybe he already has game in hand and he's just waiting patiently, but counter catcher is right there.
Yeah, Oliver's 2 cards in hand are not what he wants. I can tell you that. I did take a sneak peek. 1 is an energy, and I think the other was a supporter, but it wasn't quite what we wanted. Okay, yeah, we've gone ahead and we've counter-captured.
We're gonna get some help from that gift energy though. Where do we place the damage counters? Perhaps on the Archeops, perhaps piling them up on Luminion. Can't place them on the Iron Hands thanks to that missed energy.
Okay, the other damage counters are going on that Lugia V-Star as we just figure out where those are gonna sit. Some contemplating going on while the damage counters are still being set. Okay, some on the Luminion as well, just soften that up a little bit more as well. And Oliver's going to draw those other cards, and we'll see if any of them help us along the way to really close this match out.
And it's amazing that we get to draw those cards before we even need to commit to a promotion. I think I saw an Ultra Ball, Amy.
I'm pretty sure I saw an Ultra Ball, and then we can get the Luminion, and we can boss for the game. Iron Hands taking all of the prize cards in this match. My word.
Thank you very much 3 times. Seems like a pretty good deal, right?
You know what? I think it does. And it's exactly what decks like Miraidon try and do as well. Of course, we're just double checking there using our Archeops. Ultra Ball there for the Luminion. Take the boss's orders. And we're going to take 3 Duskull with the Iron Hands. Ab you very much for game 1. Oliver takes the lead.
Who cares about Dragapult when you can just KO Duskull over and over and over? That amp you very much attack so powerful. We were talking about how the prizes would affect the Minccino and the Ogerpon. Turns out it was all about Iron Hands this time around.
It was all about Iron Hands. Talk about a handy card. One of the most ferocious 2 prize Pokemon in our format against those little single prize Pokemon with fewer than 120 HP, am I right? Oh, wow. That was certainly a battle. Oliver took a really defensive start and made every move count. That gift energy really giving us all that it was worth. And that just goes to show how some preemptive thinking can go a long way. Putting that gift energy on what Oliver knew was going to be the target. Let's take a look again.
First amp you very much of the game, taking down that Duskull, protecting his own Archeops, taking down that Duskull a second time after it was recovered. And then we did see Andreas respawn, take down the Regigigas, which threatened the Dragapult, but that gift energy, Amy, just way too powerful and gifted that Luminion boss for that poor Duskull. Went with his friend to the discard pile.
My word. Duskull after Duskull after Duskull. Iron Hands really must like seeing those see the bench. And Oliver went for the Duskull rather than a cloak. Just goes to show that he clearly knows which one deserves the amp you very much.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, usually you could argue that, okay, I'm going to take down the Dracloak. That likely becomes a Dragapult. I don't want my opponent to get Dragapult. But if they can't get Dragapult and Dusknoir, that could be worse for you. So if you deny the Dusknoir, even if they get the Dragapult, you can deal with that eventually. So really well done there by Oliver, prioritizing what he deemed the threat. And I would love to see Andreas try to adapt here and try to always have 2 Duskull down so that he can access the Dusknoir at some point in the game.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of fun facts for you. Andreas was actually short of multiple top 8s this season and finally broke the curse. So if he goes all the way, this could have just been what he needed. And as for Oliver, he actually wanted to bring Hydreigon to this event, but his mum defeated him so many times in testing that he decided not to bring it after all. And I bet he's glad he did. Yeah, put those dragons down and now facing other dragons in the finals. Can you believe it?
I'm sure Andreas is very happy that this is the tournament that he got his break, right? He's in the finals. He's 1 game down, but he's already made it all this way. I'm sure if anyone can turn this around, it's him.
Absolutely. And like we say, undefeated into Lugia in best of 3 thus far. So we know he's got the skills to pull it off. Let's see if this game 2 can be a little bit different and whether that tussle is a little bit fairer.
Right, both players are getting set up here. I have to imagine Andreas will choose to go second, even though Lugia wants to go first. Most of the time, just having a turn to play an item and a support to be able to search for those 3Bs with the buffins and potentially find technical machine evolution could be key, but Andreas has another plan. Unfortunately, starts the Luminion, but will get that body puff in to get going.
Absolutely. And just as Andreas checks the cards, let's take a look at the prize cards. Not looking too hot for Andreas with both Crispin in the prize cards, Super Rod, and the one of Dusk Noir and a rare candy. That's not looking too hot to me.
That's definitely not ideal. It's going to make it so that taking down both Archeops in a single turn is going to be pretty much impossible. And now every energy counts, Amy. Andreas will have no wiggle room and will really need to make use of that Sparkling Crystal and make sure there's another energy somewhere else so that he can get back-to-back Phantom Dives. Otherwise, he could be in trouble.
This could be spelling trouble all round. Neither player started with a Pokemon they want to put down in this matchup, though.
Yeah.
Obviously, Andreas with that Luminion, which can be knocked out for 3 prize cards by Iron Hands, but also Oliver starting with the Squawkabilly with only 160 HP can really easily be KO'd by a Dragapult. So Andreas going ahead and attaching an energy to that Luminion, knowing that it's going to need to retreat at some point soon. 2 Dreepy on the bench so far is a lovely start, but I don't know if we're going to be able to go much further than this, and it might just be a pass.
I wonder if Andreas took note there that he has no access to Crispin, and he's just really prioritizing having the option to attach 4 Seal Stone to the Luminion instead of having to attach that rescue board to retreat. But we'll have to see. Now, Oliver, we talked about this in the beginning. The starting setup for both players will determine, right? And Oliver had a flawless setup last game. Can he do it back-to-back games, Amy?
Hopefully he can, but there is that Minccino again, really punishing Oliver for what our locals call the optimum Cinccino line. I've got to say, that is really adding insult to injury. But other than that, the prizes are looking A-okay with that Blood Moon Ursaluna being quite early on in the prizes. You only want it late game anyway. That feels like the perfect spot for an Ursaluna in my eyes.
Absolutely. The one energy you might really not want to prize is that Legacy energy, right? You play multiple copies of all the other energies, and since these Lugia decks are playing so many energies anyways, you have to expect that you're always going to have at least 1 or 2 prize, right? So this balance of prizes is definitely way better for Oliver than for Andreas, but yeah, let's not count anyone out now. That Minccino, though, I do want to touch upon it. There's usually a 1 in 10 chance of prizing any given card, right?
Absolutely.
So in a best of 3, it's like, okay, it happened once, it probably won't happen in the other 2 games. However, here we are with that 1 in 10 chance multiplying. Now we're seeing a 1 in 100 situation at this point.
Absolutely, and that's just variance.
Yeah.
It's going to happen at some point. So here we are in the finals of the juniors of the European International Championships 2025 with a 1 in 100 prize card.
I would love to know what's running through Oliver's mind right now, because like, are you frustrated at the Minccino? You're like, oh, well, I don't have that. Like, how does he deal with that, perhaps, inflection point in terms of like, okay, that could be a very key card. I don't have access to it. I don't know when I'll have access to it. So how do I adapt to this situation?
I think personally the nice thing about Lugia is its flexibility. The scary part is the setup. And once you're past that hurdle, it does feel a little bit easier. You're like, okay, I've done that. Now everything else is flexible. We've assessed that Regigigas is one of the other really big attackers into Dragapult. If that were prized as well, I'd be much more afraid. But right now, I know that Oliver has other ways that he can cope with those really high HP attackers. Going for the Luminion for the Jacques. Oh, because yeah, absolutely, we can Squawk and seize this hand because Squawkabilly was our starting card, meaning that we're going to see that flawless setup again. We did have to use more support Pokemon this time round, but we are going to see it, Pablo.
Amazing here for Oliver. I think this is something that you just mentioned, like having too many setup Pokemon can be counterintuitive, can come back to bite you later down the line, but perhaps those people that think, oh no, if I hadn't benched that Lumineer, if I hadn't used Squawkabilly, I wouldn't have lost that game. It's like perhaps you wouldn't have gotten to the point in the late game without those support Pokemon, right?
Absolutely.
So sometimes you just have to play them, go for it, and make sure that your aggression and your setup is so powerful that your opponent can't even focus on that and has to deal with your threats.
That's the thing. You need to guarantee your own setup over everything. Oliver doesn't know what's in Andreas' hand right now. It could be nothing. Andreas really couldn't do anything. So it's better to focus on what you're doing than what your opponent is doing, especially in a matchup like Lugia. You just need to focus on that setup. The 2 Archeops in the discard pile and the Lugia V on the bench are the most important things, hands down. It is paramount.
We're seeing double capturing Aroma coin flips, first tails grabbing that Wellspring Ogerpon to threaten any Dreepies or Duskulls on the bench and multiple prizes, and then we're going to go ahead and grab yet another Archeops. We already have the Lugia V-Star in hand. Can't ask for better for Oliver at this point, I don't think.
Not at all. And knowing that the threat of an Iono might be on the way, don't really want to take anything else than an Archeops. We'll fit it from the deck, absolutely, because then if Oliver does get Iono'd, at least that Archeops that we don't need is on the bottom of the deck.
And we even have the Jet Energy.
Oh, wow.
Immediately bring up the Lugia to the active and read the win for an extra 3 cards. 3 Archeops in the discard pile on turn 1. That's every Lugia player's dream.
It's so windy in here, everyone. We've got 3 Archeops, 4 Archeops, in fact, I think that was, in the discard pile already at the beginning of the game. Cards that we just don't want in the deck anymore because we don't want to draw it off the top. It's a useless card from this point on. We don't need it. Brilliant setup from Oliver, really couldn't be any better. Hopefully Andreas will be able to respond and give us a real gritty battle now.
With no Duskull in play, that Lugia is completely protected. There's no way for Andreas to deal 220 damage. Can get to 200, right, with that Phantom Dive, start piling on the damage counters on the bench, but very well calculated by Oliver. You can see why he's undefeated so far in this matchup, and that Technical Machine Evolution is probably a good indicator that Andreas' hand is not quite up to par.
Absolutely, and also assessing that they're not probably going to get a super meaningful knockout right now with not being able to gust either of the benched Pokemon who can get one-hit KO'd by a Dragapult. So Andreas going for the safe bet right now of making sure his Pokemon actually evolve. They need to get off the mark. These Dreepy need to get bigger.
They really do. We needed them bigger 1 turn earlier, but we're going to see another Ultra Ball keeping that Technical Machine Evolution. No Roxanne, no Dusclops. The other one is Prize, so that Duskull might even just be a distraction. Andreas probably aware at this point that one Candy's Prize, the other Dusclop's not available, the Dusknoir is not available, so probably trying to be like, okay, yeah, here's the Duskull that you really don't want to see, because I really need to start getting my Dragapult set up and ready to go at the latest next turn. Now, if you're Oliver, which do you pick? You have both Iron Hands and Wellspring Ogerpon in your hand right now. Do you have a boss's orders to take down a Dracloak and the Duskull perhaps, or do you go for the 3 prize cards on the active Luminion?
I think it's a really difficult choice, honestly. I'm not sure which one I'd go for personally, but considering the Andreas kind of whole strategy at this point with making sure that his card draw is sustainable is those Dracloak, I would be tempted to say I would go for Wellspring Ogerpon here. Knowing the Luminion's probably staying in play as well, that gives you late game flexibility. Thornton is in the discard pile, so we will have to pick one and stick with it this game.
All right, Andreas will go ahead and use that Technical Machine Evolution, get the 2 Dracloaks into play, and has an Iono, and has a Dragapult already ready to go. Now, we do know, however, that both Crispins are in the prize card, so Andreas might want to hold off on that Iono and try to find an Arven to establish the Sparkling Crystal. However, only choosing to evolve 1 Dracloak, maybe he missed that the other Dusclops was prized. I didn't notice which 2 Pokemon he signaled for the Technical Machine Evolution, Amy.
No, I didn't either. So when you use Technical Machine Evolution, you do have to signal before you check your deck to your opponent which 2 Pokemon you've selected for evolution. So if Andreas did select the Duskull, obviously that means he would fail that evolution as it's not in the deck. So that might have been what happened there, because you're right, I didn't catch which one he signaled. So Oliver's gone ahead and made that Lugia V-Star, and we've gone for Iron Hands. I think we're going to have a repeat of game 1 here. We're going to be amping you very much. There we go, Summoning Star for 2 Archeops, going for the first, my word, first Archeops of game 2. Andreas, I like the call of putting Duskull down as like a distraction. Andreas knows that Oliver likes to go for those, so I don't dislike the Dust Skull on the bench right now. I think that's really clever, regardless of it not being able to evolve, unfortunately.
Such a stark contrast between Oliver's setup and Andreas. I feel like we're seeing Oliver running on full steam ahead and Andreas barely trying to hold on. No boss orders this time around to combine with this Ampu very much, but Oliver at this point 3 prize cards ahead. This game is looking better and better for him each turn.
Really is. It is looking absolutely petrifying for Andreas. I wouldn't want to be staring down at that Iron Hands right now. 3 prize cards. Wow. And Iron Hands currently only counting as a single prize Pokemon. If Andreas does manage to deal with it, unfortunately, it will only grant 1 prize card in return. So his prize race is really going off to a great start for Oliver, taking 3 prize cards, and good prize cards are they.
Great top deck for Andreas, though. That Arvin means now we definitely can get a counter catcher plus the sparkling crystal guaranteed and take down perhaps an Arceus. By taking down an Arceus, we potentially protect our Dragapult from a Regigigas follow-up to this, but that Iron Hands, of course, still very menacing. And if we play Arvin, Oliver has a pretty huge hand, and we know that there's at least 1 Boss's Orders right there.
Absolutely. So there is still a chance of a comeback. The game is not over yet. It's only just begun. Honestly, no. We do have the Iono coming down, a great opportunity for a bit of disruption. Oliver took 3 prize cards, so he'll only get 3 cards from this Iono, and Andreas will get a full 6. So if there's anything that's going to stop Oliver at this point, it's going to be some heavy disruption.
Now, can Andreas find the Fire Energy? I see the Fire Energy immediately right there. That's very good news. We get the other Drag Cloak that we weren't able to find with that Technical Machine Evolution. I do believe we still have 2 Recon Directives to go, which is great news. Now, if Andreas is going to make a comeback, this is how.
Absolutely. If Andreas can establish some big Pokemon with huge HP, right now Oliver has nothing that can cope with that and a full bench. So if Andreas can come back, it's going to be by establishing this Dragapult and really making it work.
Flip the script gonna come online after those 3 prizes were taken. Andreas' hand will now be quite big after the Iono, so looking pretty good here.
Yeah, looking really nice. We've got the Forest Sealstone we can bank for later. Multiple energy to keep us going, which we've established could have been a problem in this game, but not looking like it's going to phase Andreas on this occasion. Other than that, I'm not seeing what else. We've got the, we've got the Night Stretcher and an Ultra Ball. We're going. And if we can establish a Sparkling Crystal, then this is going to be nice. We're going to get some really consistent gameplay, but I'm not sure if I'm Andreas, which Pokemon I'd be targeting first.
Now this, getting the Luminion into play again to utilize that Forest Sealstone to find that either a counter catcher or something along those lines, like that would open up the possibility for Oliver to just win by knocking out that Luminion again. So I don't know if Andreas should be using it here. I think holding off for 1 turn, hitting into this Iron Hands and trying to appease the Temple of Sinnoh plus an Iono plus a counter catcher, that could be a game-winning play and a way to make a comeback in this match.
Absolutely. As we said, it's very far from over, and some clever plays from Andreas could really make all of the difference here. So we're getting that Fire Energy attached, so we're going to be able to start going with our Dragapult's Phantom Dive attack for 200 damage to the active Pokemon and 6 damage counters across Oliver's bench.
Right. Where do you place?
I like having the Gift Energy not proc at this time. Really nice as well. Putting Oliver down to 3 cards and choosing not to take a knockout actually benefits Andreas in this scenario. Biding his time and waiting. And we saw Natalie do that yesterday in the Masters Division to great success. And so if Andreas can emulate that and choose when to take his knockouts to benefit him, that is going to be a game-winning strategy.
Oh, certainly. Not opening up a bench space. So cool. We saw it multiple times throughout both days of the tournament. That way your opponent doesn't get access to a Luminion for a boss or doesn't get access to our Regigigas to deal with your Dragapult. So even though Andreas had the possibility to get that Luminion back and play that Forest Sealstone, choosing not to do it, choosing to be very patient, because right now that Ampu very much against the Dragapult is actually not as impactful as Oliver would like it to be. And 1 boss did go to the bottom of the deck. There's no way to search for one with Luminion, so if you don't have it in your hand, can't cost and take 2 prizes this turn.
Absolutely, and although Lugia does play 4 copies of Boss's Orders, it doesn't look like Oliver's got it in hand. Looks like it might just be an amp you very much for this turn. Wow, 120 damage. Doesn't really do much to 320 HP's worth of Dragapult.
This is the first time we've seen Oliver attack with Iron Hands and not take 2 prizes, which is really,
right?
really saying something. Yeah, 2 or at least 2 prizes. Now, Andreas can now piece a much more powerful option here by grabbing that Luminion, getting that Temple of Sinnoh with the Forest Seal Stone, playing that Iono once again. I mean, perhaps you don't need to disrupt right now. Going for Counter Catcher, super key, but the key card here is Temple of Sinnoh. That's what we really need, and finding it, it's really only available with Luminion, but if we knock out the Iron Hands now, Luminion will not be giving 3 prize cards anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It won't be giving 3 prize cards up, and you know, that gift energy also won't work, and the ace spec won't work either, so Iron Hands would count for the full 2 prize cards that Andreas would definitely deserve for finally overcoming that huge Iron Hands, which has been such a thorn in his side for this entire battle, making sure that legacy energy isn't putting anything in between him and his prize cards would be fantastic.
Yep, there's the Luminion, there's the Luminous Sign. Pretty well planned here by Andreas, and yeah, that Temple of Sinnoh is doing work ×3, right? It's shutting down the gift, it's shutting down the mist, so damage counters can be placed, and it's shutting down the legacy. So many things going well now for Andreas. Gonna grab the Iono, not playing it yet. I imagine we want to at the very least attach that Forest Seal Stone, see what we get, because we do need 2 pieces this turn, I think. Counter Catcher, KO Archeops, and place the damage counters on the Iron Hands. That way there is no possibility of a Regigigas later down the line. But with 200 HP remaining, Lugia can take down the Dragapult next.
It's very true, and that would leave Oliver on 1 prize card, so Andreas still has a mountain to climb. But if anyone can do it, it is this soon-to-be possible champion Andreas, who is piloting Dragapult flawlessly thus far.
Right, I think I see an Arvin. I would love to see Andreas guarantee that Sparkling Crystal. He did Iono last turn. You know your opponent's hand might not be as spectacular, right? So you don't need to disrupt again. We're going to see that 6 brand new cards, though, which are always helpful, though.
Absolutely. 6 new cards are great, but knowing that Oliver didn't have the boss, giving him the option of more cards can be really risky.
All right, 6 new cards. I didn't see too much help. Did put 1 card at the top. All right, it seems like it is the Counter Catcher, so at least that's one of the pieces. But
here we are. There's that famous Temple of Sinnoh, turning off the effects of Oliver's special energy. They will all count as basic colorless energy from here on in. As long as that temple stays in play, then there we go, brilliant. Then all of those energy are just colorless energy as far as anyone is concerned now.
All right, there's the Counter Catcher. Going for prizes, though, putting himself in a situation where 1 more Boss's Orders, knocking out the Squawkabilly, would win him the game. And he's going to take 4 prizes this turn. He knows Rare Candy, Dusknoir, and Dusclops, and even Crispin are prized. So this could be how Andreas wins the game with only 2 more attacks, this one and the next.
Here we go. This is the comeback, taking 4 prize cards in 1 turn using Dragapult EX. 200 damage to that active Luminion, and then finishing up the rather squishy Iron Hands on the bench for a colossal knockout.
Amazingly done by Andreas, piecing out that potential comeback. Now I do see an Ultra Ball and a Boss's Orders in Oliver's hands, so if Oliver takes 2 prize cards this turn, Dusknoir will not be available to win the game against that Squawkabilly. I guess you could use it and then take us to a tiebreaker game.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be absolutely magical? I don't think I've seen a tiebreaker game in a finals in quite a long time. But let's see how this irons out without that Iron Hands. We're going to head and, attaching our first energy and using Archeops to get some more for our Lugia. But we're going to need more than the double turbo energy if we're going to make it, because Temple of Sinnoh means that energy is only counting as 1 right now. So Oliver does not actually. Oh, is there 3 energy or 4? It looks like
I think there's only 3 energy.
I think there's only 3 as well.
And so yeah, Oliver is attacking, choosing to discard Temple, but Oliver does not have enough energy. The attack has been declared, so.
There's another. Oh no, the other Primal Turbo was still available, so looks like we've been able to attach an energy with Primal Turbo before declaring an attack.
All right, it looked like it happened, but there we go.
There we are. We can't hear them. Just so that we know, we can't hear what's going on the table. So we managed to get the knockout on that Duskull for 1 more prize card, leaving the squishy Dragapult ready for taking later.
Prizes are tied. Counter Catcher is not live. I think the boss's orders was put at the bottom of the deck after that Iono. So Andreas needs a way to shuffle the deck and needs to find that boss's orders to take down the Squawk ability for game. Otherwise, the game will continue at this point because Oliver very smartly targeted that Duskull.
I like the Duskull play because although it may not have been a threat if Oliver had taken 2 prize cards, it's also not a threat if you just take it down. And it means that Andreas can't use Counter Catcher because he evens the prize race. So not getting too excited and going ahead is what is bringing Oliver to this finals, I imagine.
Yeah, that very calculated decision. You don't always have to take the maximum amount of prize cards you can each turn, right? Especially with those combat cards like Counter Catcher, like Iono, like Roxanne. Always important to keep the prize count in mind, not just the amount of prizes that you're taking with your attack.
Absolutely. Oliver knows he can take 2 prize cards next turn. Leaving this Dragapult with 200 HP has really helped him with that. But something he can control is when he takes his prize cards. We just need to take 6 in total to win. It's 4 all currently, and either side could piece together a victory. I think it's just a little bit of a discussion going on there, but we will see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I think the judges are talking to the kids right now, so hopefully we get an update soon. All right, we are going to see the flip the script. We are going to find 2 cards to shuffle the deck because that boss's orders is at the very bottom of the deck, Amy.
Absolutely, and using cards just to shuffle your deck can be a really awesome strategy, especially with Iono being so prevalent. So we're going ahead and using Earthen Vessel to get 2 energy, but also shuffling the deck is fantastic because we still have Ardra Cloak, so we can recon Directive. Andreas is choosing to go for a Buddy Poffin, hoping to thin the deck a little further. Getting Badu out for the first time in this best of 3.
Definitely hasn't. There's been a lack of pollen in this finals match in particular. I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more of this Badu later down the line. But now it all comes down to this recon directive. Can Andreas find the boss's orders off of the Dracloak to win the game this turn?
Let's have a look. There's an oven and a sparkling crystal, I think. No. That's not quite going to be enough. We've already used our V-Star. Is there any other option? It doesn't look like there's a boss in hand. I think this could be it.
There's no boss in hand, so now it comes down to, does Oliver have a boss's orders in hand? And he did use one last turn to knock out Duskull, right? There it is at the very top of his discard pile. So does he have an Ultra Wall or a way to access a boss's orders this upcoming turn? Because now Andreas doesn't even have a way to disrupt Oliver's hand. I think it all comes down to that Iono last turn, Amy, which put the boss at the bottom.
It really does. Andreas going for an attach for turn on the bench. Dragapult. Oliver staring down at this Dragapult. Lugia V-Star still has enough HP that Dragapult can't one-hit KO it right now. So Lugia would survive and continue to reign on. Oh my gosh, if I'm Andreas, I'm possibly wanting to move that Dragapult.
I think you actually don't even need a boss's orders. If you have a Nest Ball or an Ultra Ball for Regigigas could take down the healthy Dragapult if Andreas retreats into that. Now, we're going to be grabbing the Counter Catcher, but because Duskull is no longer there, or because 2 prizes were not taken, that card cannot be played right now.
No, so it's just a case of thinning the deck a little bit more, making it easier for Andreas. If He does manage to get through this turn, but it's not looking too hot. We're going to retreat that Dragapult into the healthy Dragapult, making it much harder for Oliver because he is going to need to string together that combo with our Regigigas in order to take the victory now. But I believe you saw an Ultra Ball in the hand, Pablo.
There an Ultra Ball and an S-Ball. I think there is one, so it could be a boss, could be a Regigigas, and Oliver could be getting closer to becoming the European International Champion.
This is so tense. Andreas just taking every moment to assess the situation, make sure that he's done everything in his power to set himself up for success. We see the Phantom Dive, 200 damage on Lugia, and now Andreas' job is to choose which damage out of the 6 is going to go onto the benched Pokemon and exactly where all of that's going to sit. We're going to put it all on the Squawkabilly. Oliver draws for turn.
Okay, he's not even, there's the boss, there's the Luminion, so he has an Ultra Ball in hand. There it is.
Oh my gosh. It all has to come together. Luminion for boss, boss the bench, Dragapult, and Oliver is your EUIC Juniors champion.
What an amazing game for both players. Andreas was so close to making an amazing comeback. But Oliver, with those perfect setups in back-to-back games, piecing everything out perfectly, not activating counter catcher. If you told me this was the Masters Finals, I would have believed you, Amy. What an amazing match